The Capitals waive center Evgeny Kuznetsov.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this bonus edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. So in this bonus weekend edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the news that broke today that center Evgeny Kuznetsov has been placed on waivers for the purposes, they say, of sending him to Hershey. We'll talk about that in the show, and we'll talk about how easy will that be? What ultimately is the outlook for Kuznetsov? Will he report to Hershey if no one claims him? Will another team take a flyer on him and see what it's all about? We'll talk about that, but a stunning move for the Capitals today. Make no mistake about it. I was at the park with my kids, and all of a sudden my phone started blowing up. And I hear the news that Evgeny Kuznetsov has been waived by the Capitals. Stunned. Sums up my feelings about how I felt about the Capitals waiving a 2010 first-round draft pick and what is ultimately behind this. How did we get here with Evgeny Kuznetsov? I remember before he first came to this team, there was a bunch of hype and, folklore that this really great Russian player, over in Russia, will join this team at some point. Everyone butchered his name, this Kuznetsov guy, or whatever his name is, people always said. And then the fanfare when he came over here. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's been a bumpy ride for Evgeny Kuznetsov as long as he has been on this team. But he has shown flashes of greatness. He has a bond with, the other Russian players that have either been on this team in the past or currently on this team. So it's going to be tough for some of the Capitals, as he's been on this team for quite some time. Most notably, I would say Alex Ovechkin might take this a little bit hard, but Alex Ovechkin is a well-rounded guy. He's been around the game long enough to know that these kind of things happen, but it's going to be tough for him. But he, if you take a look historically, Orlov and Samsonov and just the different Russian players he's played in, not to mention just the other regular guys on the team that aren't from Russia that have grown to love him. So it's going to be tough for them, but ultimately it is going to be a fresh change, a new start for Evgeny Kuznetsov. This is something that has been spoke about in Russian media for the last couple of years, is that Kuzi said that I want out of Washington. And he always rebuffed it when, asked more pointedly about it. Did you say you wanted out of here? And he would say, I never said that. But now it's come to that. He entered into the NHL's player assistance program for the second time, and he is looking for a change. And at the end of the day, that is what Brian McClellan is looking to give him. Evgeny Kuznetsov waived by the Capitals for the purposes of being sent to Hershey if he clears. Brian McClellan expressed that he wanted to give Kuzi the fresh start he was looking for. And I think that's what we all want at the end of the day. I have no hard feelings against Evgeny Kuznetsov. I don't wish him any hard feelings or any hardships in his life. If he goes on to another team and kills it, bravo, good job. It's just that he's the guy that said, I could be the best player in the NHL if I chose to be. It's just very rarely did we see him choose to really excel. We think about that time that he was scratched this season and everyone was up in arms that he got scratched. And then what happened? He came back to this team and lit the team on fire for a while, but then that evaporated. Kuzi has had a bumpy ride with the Capitals the last couple of years and has even reached out to various Russian media expressing that he would like to move on from the Capitals. And I think that, the big rift with him was with a former head coach of the team, Peter Laviolette, that they did not see eye to eye. One of the things that I said about Spencer Carberry before he came here is that if he could do a few things, three things, I said that if he could reinvigorate Anthony Mantha, check, he did that. If he could reinvigorate Kuznetsov, not really. And the other thing was taking the Capitals to the Stanley Cup to be determined. But I was really hoping that Spencer Carberry was going to be able to be the guy to get more out of Evgeny Kuznetsov. But he's a tough guy to work with, a bit of a quirky guy at the end of the day. And ultimately, I just don't think that he fits in. And I think that he is, in fact, looking for that fresh start, that maybe a change of scenery, maybe a change of zip code could be exactly what the doctor ordered. This season hasn't been the greatest for Kuzi, who was drafted in the first round in 2010. He struggled with consistency. We'll never forget what he did for the Capitals in 2018, where he scored 27 goals for the Capitals. That was the high water mark. That was the Capitals in the, vintage Rock the Red era. That's when Alex Ovechkin and Backstrom and Carlson and Holtby and Grubauer and so many warm fuzzies to think about this team was in its peak. Well, we're starting to see this team get younger based on necessity. So Kuznetsov is, ostensibly going to be another guy that's peeled off. Nick Backstrom, another guy peeled off. TJ Oshie, who seems to be getting injured more and more, another guy that's peeling off. So even though this Capitals team did not want to get younger so quickly, they're doing it based on necessity. Has 17 points in 43 games this season. So you take a look at it. He has not lived up to potential his entire team here or his entire time here. And one of the things that I first heard about, I heard that he was released from the NHL Player Assistance Program. I guess he's still receiving treatment in it, but I guess he was given the okay to practice with it. Is that who's going to come out? You take a look at Hendrik Slop here, who has killed it here as of late. You take a look at Michael Scarbosa. Now with Kuznetsov back in the mix, who would have got sent back down to Hershey? And would that have been the right idea? That is one of the things that I struggled with the most. Is that the right decision to make? Even though that Kuznetsov is back, does that mean you're going to send Scarbosa down? Does that mean you're going to send Hendrik Slop here down, considering how great they're playing? I think that was the position and that was the decision that GM Brian McClellan had to make. Not to mention that what is coming up here real soon, the trade deadline on March 8th. I think that, potentially Brian McClellan could be stocking up for a big push. Especially if it is the perception that the Capitals are in it. So I think that at least in part, that has something to do with it. I think that also to a large extent that, Kuznetsov has kind of been that dark cloud that has hung around the Capitals organization for the last couple of years. I remember Tarek El-Bashir talking about this a couple of years ago already, saying the Capitals would love to trade Evgeny Kuznetsov. They just can't find anyone that wants him, just, I suppose, based on his inconsistent play and the cap hit associated there. So it seems like an interesting thing, but this seems to be a win-win for the Capitals and Kuznetsov. Max spoke with Kuzi and his agent, and it seems like this is what both parties want. I don't think that Brian McClellan has any hard feelings against Kuzi. I think that we're all hoping for the best. It's about a fresh start for Kuzi. First of all, Max said he's been looking for a change in environment, and this might set the wheels in motion for that to be accomplished. Kuznetsov was cleared to return to practice on Friday and is still receiving care from the NHLPA's Player Assistance Program. If he clears, he will be sent to Hershey, but Max said he wouldn't rule out a buyout. So stay tuned to Locked On Capitals for sure as the soap opera, the saga of Evgeny Kuznetsov continues. Would he ultimately return to her, or would he be assigned to Hershey? Would he show up in Hershey if he does clear? Say no other team takes a flyer on him. Would he ultimately do that? That is the question, not an easy answer. And I guess that we ultimately don't know right now. We've had a history together, and it's an opportunity for him to have a fresh start. I think it's the main theme we're trying to accomplish, McClellan said. Mac wouldn't rule out Kuzi making a return, but he would have to return in top form. Mac wanted to make it clear that Evgeny Kuznetsov himself, was looking for a change. So we shouldn't say, hey, horrible Brian McClellan, why are you coming down on a guy that's going through hard times? Evgeny Kuznetsov and his agent, they both wanted a change. So we shouldn't take this out on Brian McClellan. We shouldn't take this out on the Capitals. A change is what it was wanted, and a change is what Kuzi will get. We take a look at it here. I think he's getting some stuff together in his personal life straightened out. And I think player wise, too, I think he needs to find the level that he's accustomed to playing at, going down there, working at it, or maybe another organization. I don't know if he finds it. I think it's important for him to find out. Simply said, waivers is a means to accomplish what they want, Mac added of Kuznetsov's camp. So, a tough move for the Capitals. I have no ill will towards Evgeny Kuznetsov. When he is engaged, he is one of the most dynamic players on the ice when he chooses to be, when he's up for the challenge. I mean, nothing gets you pumped up more than when he's doing the bird after he scores a goal, but we have not seen that kind of Evgeny Kuznetsov for some time. He's had his personal struggles, and I wish him nothing but the best. And that's what I'm saying here. I'm not coming down on Kuznetsov. I'm not coming down on GM Brian McClellan. They wanted a change, and a change is what they will get. I guess it remains to be seen how that manifests itself. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about how much money Evgeny Kuznetsov is owed and how easy will it be for him to move on to another team. I'll discuss coming up. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. And let me tell you something, guys. If you're watching an NBA game, say you're watching a Wizards game, and you're not that into it, open up the app, put a little bit of money on the game. It makes watching the game that much more exciting. Just visit fanduel.com/locked on and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last minute deals, all in prices and views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And one of the things that I don't like is that when my favorite team is playing or my favorite band is playing and I can't find tickets, it is frustrating. Take the frustration out of it and the guesswork out of it with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKED ON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED ON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, welcome back into this bonus edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So a bit of an unconventional Locked On Capitals as I am recording this from my kitchen. Well, because my kids are taking a nap right now, and I thought that this was of utmost importance as it's not every day that a former first-round pick of the Capitals gets waived, but it happened today. Can you believe that this is actually happening? I guess I'm a bit surprised to a certain extent. The conspiratorial part of me kind of thought that this could be a possibility, but I'm like, this is just Dan kind of thinking out in the weeds here. But it happened today. Again, the important thing to remember in all of this for me is that this was not something that, bad Brian McClellan coming down on Evgeny Kuznetsov, who's going through a hard time, or this is not Kuzi getting crazy. This is two parties saying, we want to change. The Capitals want to change because Evgeny Kuznetsov has been what? inconsistent. We've seen really great Evgeny Kuznetsov. We've seen really poor Evgeny Kuznetsov. And despite the fact that he has played with different coaches in different schemes, he has struggled to find consistency. What is one of the things that we remember last season, last summer to be more specific, was that Barry Trotz, who is now the GM of the Nashville Predators, was all in on Kuzi, but that fell apart. That deal would have sent Duchesne to the Capitals. And why would Barry Trotz want a guy like that if he is so consistent as I portray him to be? Well, for whatever reason, Barry Trotz was the Kuzi whisperer, and he was the guy that was able to get a lot of production out of Kuzi. Now, I understand that Barry Trotz is the GM of the Predators, but it just is kind of a thing out there that there are other teams that see, intrinsic qualities to a guy like Evgeny Kuznetsov. So will a team ultimately take a flyer on him and see what's going on here? Let's just talk about who he is and why a team might be interested in him. In 723 career games, the 2010 first-round pick has totaled 171 goals and 397 assists. In 87 playoff games, Kuzi has scored 67 points, 32 of which came in the Caps' run to the franchise's first Stanley Cup win in 2018. Kuzi is a two-time NHL All-Star and helped his country win gold at the 2011 IIHF World Championship and 2014 IIHF World Championships, writes the Daily Faceoff. So he does have the resume. So it should not come as any surprise that a team would want to take a flyer on him or take a chance on him, take a chance on him. It's always the possibility that it could happen. Kuznetsov is the seventh year of an 8-year contract with Washington, carrying a cap hit of $7.8 million through next season. So it's an interesting thing. One of the things that Brian McClellan said, and how sure they are that they want Kuznetsov to move on to other things, is Brian McClellan said he would not rule out buying out Evgeny Kuznetsov. Ultimately, I think that would be the absolute last case scenario, worst case scenario for the Capitals to do a buyout on a guy like Kuznetsov. But that is what Brian McClellan said, that he would not rule it out. Kuznetsov currently holds a modified 10-team no-trade clause, but with a high cap hit and limited production, it's unlikely a team will look to pick him up on waivers. That was the assessment of the Daily Faceoff. What they thought about it, for me, if you're asking me, it's kind of out there. I understand that it's out there that a team will want to take a chance on him. But like I referenced off the top of this segment here, what is one of the things I said about Barry Trotz? He saw a quality in Evgeny Kuznetsov that he was willing to take a chance on. And let's face it, there are 31 other teams in the league here that could potentially be interested in a guy like Kuznetsov. Now, this is not a guy that undrafted or, unqualified or unskilled. He is a former first-round pick. He was drafted in the first round for the Capitals back in 2010. So I think that he has the skill set, and not to be so quick to write players off. Again, if we want to take a look at another player like Anthony Mantha, everyone, myself included, had written Anthony Mantha off. Do whatever it takes. Just get him out of here. And what did he do? He proved everyone wrong that he still has a really great skill set and is one of the key contributors to the Capitals offense this season. Could that be the same thing for a guy like Evgeny Kuznetsov? Before we go and, say disparaging things about him, again, I'm the first to say that he has not, been playing his best hockey here as of late, but he might be able to find his scoring touch on another team. And if he does that, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Evgeny Kuznetsov moving on to another team and just getting on with his life. Life is too short to be caught up in like, well, if he's not playing on the Capitals, I hope he's horrible somewhere else. I hope that, none of the Capitals fans out there think that, despite the fact that he is that quirky, neurotic guy out there, that I still think that he is a good guy. He's a good father. He's a good husband. He's a good man. It's just that he needs a change of scenery. And ultimately, I guess that's up to Kuzi if he will take advantage of that and he will excel under a different environment. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this bonus edition of Locked On Capitals, coming to you on a Saturday afternoon talking Capitals hockey. I wouldn't have it any other way. Again, just to talk about the game last night, huge win for the Capitals. I think that they are in a good position, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Capitals do next against the Coyotes. Let's hope they can keep amassing points. Let's hope that this team that everyone said couldn't do anything this year will prove a lot of people wrong and make a push for the playoffs. That's my hope anyway. Listen, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.